tonight we are celebrating the release of issue 3, volume 4 of Jasper magazine. We're really excited. You know, every issue we have a big multidisciplinary arts event, and we're very happy tonight to be at the Siebel's house because so much of this month's magazine has to do with the burning of Columbia.
For One Book, One Community, we've looked to Southern books and authors. That's what people have been wanting. And this book in particular, On Agate Hill by Lee Smith, ties in very well because it's written during the time period. So while everyone else is looking at the historical facts, we can look at a novel that actually looks back at time. So it's Found Diary in 2003 and looking back, and here we are looking back at the burning of Columbia. So you can kind of let your memories go back, see what happened, and get a different viewpoint in terms of a personal effect.
And we're also, another thing we're very excited about is we have Mo Badura here and Lee Snellgrove from One Columbia. We're naming our the first ever City of Columbia Poet Laureate, who is Ed Madden.
Ed is a professor at University of South Carolina. He's a true poet, and he's a really great fit for this position that council approved a couple of months ago.
I'm really kind of humbled because I think Columbia is a city that's really rich with writers. But I'm also really excited. I've got 4 years to come up with things to do to promote the literary arts and promote poetry in the city. So I'm really excited about that.
Ed Madden will be reading Marjorie Wentworth's poem that she was not able to read at the inauguration, and he has also written a poem in response to that. And this, we're very delighted because this is Ed's first reading as Poet Laureate. So we're honored and just so happy to see this kind of a movement in Columbia.
Well, it recognizes the role of art and how we think about ourselves as a culture, as a community, as a state.
And we're also announcing the Masters of Art. This is the second year in a row that we've done this. What we've tried to do is identify each year 4 individual artists who have created a body of work that they could really rest their laurels on if they chose to, and of course none of them have. So we're very excited tonight to be honoring Clark Ellefson, Laura Spong, Clay Burnett, and Mana Hewitt. Next up, Mana Hewitt. Next up, Clark Ellefson. And finally, Clay Burnett. Take your photos. She's over there. Okay, were you getting that perfect? Thank you everyone so very much.
Hello everybody. Wow, there are a lot of you. Didn't realize that. So it was actually Cindy that brought the idea to me of a poet laureate for the city, and at first, I wasn't really aware of what that meant and what that implied, but as we sort of talked it out, it became evident that there was a lot of power there. And I guess little did we know how relevant it would be when we actually got to the point of announcing and how important it would, and how much it would set Columbia apart as an artistic city, which is what our intent for it was to have a representative of the arts. I will introduce, we'll get to who it is, although many of you know, but I wanted to thank the selection committee that we put together that helped us select the Poet Laureate, and that included Nikki Finney, Tony Talent, Councilman Mo Badura, Michael Wakela is a representative of the Mayor's Office, Jonathan Haupt, who is the director of the USC Press, Sarah June Goldstein, Cindy Boyder, and Alejandro Garcia Lemos. They were great. They reviewed applications, and they even pitched out ideas for potential people to be it. And they really gave us the weight we needed to say that this is our first, and this is what we feel the city needs. So I'd also like to thank the Board of One Columbia, the City Council, and Mayor Benjamin, who were all instrumental in helping us craft the resolution and make it a reality. So to introduce the Poet Laureate, I'd like to first introduce Councilman Mo Badura, who's the representative of Council District 3 and the chair of the Arts and Historic Preservation Committee of City Council.
Thank you all for having me. It really is a pleasure to be here. You know what makes my job a lot more it's here, but also all the support that I receive from each and every one of you. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to present Ed as our first Poet Laureate. And I have to tell you, the first time I met Ed, I felt at ease with him. I felt he's really represents Columbia because he is easy to talk to. And he's really humble. And everywhere I go in the city, I believe every citizen in this city is humbled because it is one big, small country town. And that's what makes him so perfect and well-fed for this position. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first City of Columbia Poet Laureate. Ed. Biography of Ed and to what he can do, what he's done, but I think I've always spoke from the heart, and that's what I thought that I could present and introduce Ed. So come on.
So first of all, I should say thanks to all those people as well, and to Cindy and Lee for being just a driving force behind making this happen. And I want to say first of all, I'm really excited about the possibilities of what we might do in the next 4 years. I mean, I'm imagining we could be like New York and Austin and London and Dublin and have like poems on the buses and poems and stuff like that. But other than being really excited, I'm also really humbled. I think this is this city, I mean, obviously we're a city rich in artists, but we're really rich in writers. So I consider this really an honor to represent our literary community. I wanted to read a couple of poems tonight. I have a much more traditional poem for Tuesday night with the mayor and all that stuff, right? So I hope you'll indulge me if I don't read that tonight.
Right.
So what I want to read tonight, I have two poems. And one is not mine. I would like to read Marjorie Wentworth's poem that was intended for the inauguration. And I want to say that when I first met with Mo Badura, one of the things he said that really struck me was that the arts are the soul of the city. And I thought part of the point of having a Poet Laureate is to insist that the arts are part of the soul of the state. And we need the arts just as much as we need the politics. And I also thought, frankly, that Marjorie's poem was beautiful, that it's a really reflective poem about the importance of history. And I know that when I read comments online, which I know Bert tells me don't read the comments online, like over and over again, people were saying things about how she shouldn't bring up bad history, she shouldn't talk about that flag. And I just thought it was a beautiful, reflective poem about the importance of knowing our history and doing something with it. So the first poem I want to read is Marjorie's poem. It's called One River, One Boat. And it begins with an epigraph from Elizabeth Alexander, who was was the first inaugural poet for President Obama. And that epigraph is, I know there's something better down the road. Because our history is a knot we try to unravel while others try to tighten it. We tire easily and fray the cords that bind us. The cord is a slow-moving river spiraling across the land in a succession of S's, splintering near the sea. Picture us all,
crowded onto a boat at the last bend in the river. Watch children stepping off the school bus, parents late for work, grandparents fishing for favorite memories, teachers tapping their desk with red pens, firemen suiting up to save us, nurses making rounds, baristas grinding coffee beans, dock workers unloading apartment-sized containers of computers and toys from factories across the sea. Every morning, a different veteran stands at the base of the bridge holding a cardboard sign with misspelled words and an empty cup. In fields at daybreak, rows of migrant farm workers standing on ladders break open iced peach blossoms, their breath rising and resting above the frozen fields like clouds. A John boat drifts down the river. Inside, a small boy lies on his back, hands laced behind his head. He watches stars fade from the sky, and he dreams. Consider the prophet John calling us from the edge of the wilderness to name the harm that has been done, to make it plain, and enter the river and rise. It is not about asking for forgiveness. It is not about bowing our heads in shame, because it all begins and ends here. While workers unearthed trenches at Gadsden's Wharf where 100,000 Africans were imprisoned within brick walls awaiting auction or death or worse. Where the dead were thrown into the water and the river clogged with corpses has kept centuries of silence. It is time to gather at the water's edge and toss wreaths into this watery grave. And it is time to praise the judge who cleared George Stinney's name 70 years after the fact. We honor him. We pray. Here, where the Confederate flag still flies beside the State House, haunted by our past, conflicted about the future, at the heart of it, we are at war with ourselves, huddled together on this boat handed down to us, stuck at the last bend of a wide river, splintering near the sea. I don't know about you, but I just think that's a lovely poem. And I guess, so thinking about that, so I'm gonna do something a little silly or daring or something. I'll save the real poem for Tuesday night. Either blackout poems or erasure poems. In a blackout poem, you take someone else's page and you black out all the words, and then the words you leave are your poem. And usually you don't even like rearrange them. That's the poem. And you have to admit, 5th graders, 6th graders, they love tearing up a book, especially if you're sitting in the library where you're not supposed to do things in books. And we're tearing. You erase the words, and part of the point of it is to re-inhabit it, like to revisit it, maybe to resist it. So thinking about Marjorie's poem, thinking about the emphasis on history, I went back and read Governor Nikki Haley's inaugural address from the 12th of January 2011, and I have written a tiny little erasure poem. And it is called, and the only changes I've made to her language, other than cutting a whole bunch of it, is I changed the royal I to a plural we occasionally, and I pluralized a couple of nouns. Otherwise, this is all her words and phrases. The title is History Can Teach Us Many Lessons. On this beautiful, chilly, special day, we carry ourselves with grace through the mazes and pages of the past. A journey impaired by partisanship, personalities, distractions, a whole lot of tea dumped in the harbor. Happiness existed in not knowing the ugliness of much that followed. The horrors need be retold here. Ugliness and discrimination remain part of the fabric of our lives. We have to improve education, allow our children to be successful regardless of race or gender, regardless of where they are born, those who look or sound different. The energy that drives our cooperation, our faith in our own abilities, our vision, does not come from the Capitol building, the voice heard loudest. It has a familiar ring. When we survey this landscape, this history, we are not discouraged. We don't have time for that. Through hard work, neighbors helping neighbors, immigrants, brothers, sisters, we make this a new day. Take comfort in words. Imagine it. Imagine it. The sound of people's voices. Thank you. Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everyone else. Have fun. I think, are we done? Or do you have more to say? Cindy has more to say, of course. Thank you all.
Columbia is becoming a southeastern arts destination. We're becoming the literary capital of South Carolina, and we couldn't be more happy to be a part of it. Those of us who are enlightened and we've been able to recognize how important the arts and humanities are to quality of life, to growth of a community, both economic and intellectual and spiritual, it's so important that we come together.
I think reading is important because we do get to know our history, and sometimes we think we know our history, but once we delve into the books, we find out a little bit more, and it also brings us to conversation. And what this is all about is conversation, discussion, viewpoints, and sharing with one another each other's thoughts about things and putting something else out there so that we can shed light on something new.
I think art and poetry help us think about what it means to be human. And so I think it's essential that we think about, I know Mo Badera actually said the other day that art is the soul of the city. And so it's important that that soul be part of public life just as much as politics be part of public life.
You know, I've always said to be a true metropolitan city, you have to represent every aspect of the city. Art is a huge part of being a metropolitan. And that's what I like about this occasion tonight. So I think it's a really great step for the city.